Series 3 of the Eighth Doctor Adventures contained many classic monsters. We had the return of the spiders from Metabolus 3.
All praise to the great one.
It's like they're in the room. And then we had,
Male Padme, Male. Keep doing that and they
well,
will turn up in the room.
it is spider season here. Uh,
Oh dear.
but luckily, we had some vicious plans for them to be eaten by the Crinoids in Hothouse.
Oh, what a great story Seeds of Doom is.
Great story. And
The
then,
Crinoids themselves don't really have any iconic quotes that I can throw out at the moment, but
other than
I, yeah, that which sounds
I,
like a purr.
yeah. And then continuing the fourth Doctor monster trend, we're taking a look at Wirrn Dawn, the fourth story in Series 3 of the Eighth Doctor Adventures. This throwback is to tie in with Echoes, which is linked with Birdsong because it is sort of Ark in space related, and that's where the Wirrn came from.
Yeah, I mean, on the cover, you've got the Ark in Space uniform, haven't you, for the
Mhm.
Space Pioneers from the future. So presumably it takes place around the same time. Although this doesn't feature those Space Pioneers, this is a prequel to the Ark in Space, featuring the Galsec colonists who are out charting new worlds and engaging in what seems like a full-scale war with the Wirrn host. You know, this swarm is tearing through space, attacking their ships, which is where the Doctor and Lucy Miller come in. They've landed on one of those spaceships just before it falls under attack, become separated from the TARDIS. They, fall to the planet and then have to survive with this little group until dawn.
It's quite a dysfunctional group because all the characters kind of hate each other, but they've all
Yeah,
got
pretty
one
much.
mission to survive.
Yeah, even like the more reasonable one, who's played by Daniel Anthony, who
Hmm.
you may know from Sarah Jane Adventures. Just he had a little role there, didn't he, as a
Yeah,
certain
yeah.
Clyde Langer. Yeah, and it's funny because this was released back in 2009, while he was very much in the thick of it, of the
Yeah.
Sarah Jane Adventures. Really, I mean, fairly early on still, funnily enough, which is wild to think. Yeah, here he is playing a Galsec colonist.
Hmm. And he
Uh,
has quite a big role towards the end of it and how
hmm,
his ancestors link to this planet and the Wirrn,
yeah.
um, which is great. And I think the Wirrn within this really gets horror very well of
Hmm.
them, with them sort of slicing people apart, the sort of, mutating aspect of them. Yeah, the great action sequences like, Lucy and the Doctor just falling through space and, the Wirrn just slicing people left, right, and center. Like, it's got some big set pieces that really set the imagination alight.
It's a very Nick Briggs two-parter, isn't it? Like, I
Mm,
think it has a similar style to some of his early Fourth Doctor adventures, stuff like Destroy the Infinite,
yes.
stories like that. It's got a certain panache for this length of action story. It's been
You're
described as
thrown
Doctor
straight
Who
into it,
meets,
aren't you?
yeah, Starship Troopers.
It
And
almost feels a bit Halo esque in a way.
yeah, I can
Very
see
video
that with
gamey.
the when you look at the cover
Yeah,
as
you got
well.
like Master Chief on the cover.
Hmm. Yeah, and what you were saying about the Wirrn as well. I think it's wonderful how it treats the Eighth Doctor's attitude towards them.
Hmm.
He's sort of similar to what the Fourth Doctor often was, detached from the human side of it almost. Not completely, but just to the point of understanding that this is nature. It's not
It's a
always,
cycle.
yeah, it's not about morality as such. It's about nature. This is how these creatures live and survive and propagate. And so, he's not begrudging the Wirrn that at all, and sort of understanding that in some way this is just how it has to be.
Hmm.
And there's quite that almost detached nature to the Doctor that I like when we get the Doctor like that,
But
more
you don't
alien.
think McGann's Doctor is that, because McGann's kind of the sort of longing for life and the love of the universe and the beauty of it.
Hmm. But beauty also comes in different shapes and forms, I
Yes.
suppose.
Yeah.
And even though it's certainly not conventionally beautiful, it is still a cycle of life.
Hmm.
Admit a gruesome one, but it's just the way that they've evolved through no fault of their own. And it's nice to have a doctor who is understanding of that. I mean, I had a good time with this one. I think I enjoyed part one more than part two. I
Yeah, I
think
think
it's
part
very
two gets bogged down by sort of the backstory of this world and
yeah, I think it's a bit of whiplash you're feeling, isn't it? As you
yeah.
go from all that action, all that excitement. Sheridan Smith, bloody brilliant. I mean,
Oh yeah, we're so
what
lucky to
hasn't
have
been
her.
said that hasn't already been said about her and Lucy Miller? But yeah, it's wonderful the sequence of them in the spacesuits as
Yeah,
they're
getting the
tumbling through
visor to
space.
work and the little microphone and yeah, like push the button.
Yeah, all that stuff, all that action on audio that you think shouldn't work but just
The
does.
sound design, yeah, they really get sort of the vastness of space really
Mm.
well. You can picture it so beautifully.
Yeah, and I think after all that, once you get a chance to breathe a bit more in part two, there's sort of a bit less
It
meat
lulls.
to it. Yeah. And then it just sort of goes until it ends, really. Yeah, I mean, I still enjoyed it, but I think very much when you're thrown from what you had in part two to what you had in part one
Yeah.
to what you get in part two, you sort of sigh a bit, I suppose.
I mean, comparing it to the other Doctor Who Wirrn story, Wirrn Isle, how does this fare?
I mean, that's funny because that's another one that has a strong first half
Yeah. Mm.
and then a bit more of a bogged down in Technobabble
Yeah, part four.
second half. Yeah. I think ultimately I prefer that one because it has higher highs, but it does also have lower lows than Wirrn Dawn.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, there's also hosts of the Wirrn from
Unit.
Unit. Yeah. And that one I think has some interesting body horror as well, but sort of goes a bit over the top in part two. Yeah,
I've
it
not
sort of
listened
jumps
to
the
that one yet.
shark a bit. Hmm. Yeah, maybe. Hmm. Yeah, I think Wirrn Isle's my favourite because of the vibes in the first half. That is very strong, but
Mm.
I think this is probably the most consistent overall, which is
Yeah, I
funny because I
think
have just been saying about how part one and part two, there's a bit of whiplash between it. It just seems to be the curse of Wirrn stories on audio.
yeah, maybe that's just the format for Wirrn stories.
Yeah, I'd
But
not even clocked that before, but yeah.
if I was to give Wirrn Dawn a rating, I'd give it an 8 out of 10. I think it's solid.
Yeah, I think 7 or 8 is fair for this one. I mean, I feel like I probably enjoyed it more than at least two-thirds of Echoes easily. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think this is the joy of doing these throwbacks is because you don't tend to go back to your back catalogue and then you get releases like this where you have a Doctor and companion like the Eighth Doctor and Lucy, and you're like, oh god, they were brilliant, weren't they?
Hmm.
You're just
I think this is
reminded.
very strong highlight of them too. And maybe that's another
Yeah.
reason why part two isn't quite as strong because they spend most of part one together and then
Mm,
part two they're separate. Maybe that's it as well.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, for me, when it comes to series three, I'm always more drawn to Hot House.
Yeah, that's a really good
Really
one.
like Hot House. So this one, it's sort of, it goes under the radar a bit. And yeah, it's nice that we've got to go back to it, even if it's a tenuous excuse through the Echoes link.
It links
We found a way.
there.
Life finds a way, even if it's gruesome sometimes, like the Wirren's life cycle.
And on that bombshell, thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye, everyone.